Okay, now. How do you do this?
Just do random crap again. That works, right?
Random
Yeah.
crap, Emma. I put a lot of effort in that, okay? I needed to look through at a blender fit.
Yeah, looking at feet's random. Yeah.
How dare you? I'll let you know that that's an art form, okay? I don't just look at every op's feet.
Doctor,
But what?
Chain medics. We've had a lot of subclasses in this game's history that people consider worse than others. Be it because they perform roles that are easily replaceable by other ops, or simply because of their unusual playstyle that puts a lot of players off even if an ops kit is quite solid. And the Chain Medic subclass is one of those, where ops in there are considered worse AoE medics. But one thing that's true for every one of these subclasses is that it only takes one 6-star with bigger numbers and less restrictions to fix everything. Doesn't matter how much people clowned on it before, all Hyperglyph has to do is power creep harder and everything is solved, which is exactly what they did for Mon3tr. So let's analyze her kit and see why she's basically the strongest medic in the game, starting like always with S1.
耐えろ。少しチクッとするかもしれない。
Now, I know I gassed her up quite a lot in that introduction, but S1 is quite whatever, all things considered. It's literally one line of text that does the most basic thing ever. You place her down, she heals her allies, and when S1 charges, Mon3tr will perform a heal with one extra bounce that's twice as strong as a regular heal.
Wait. Bounce? What's that?
Well, it's basically what makes Chain Medics. Their heals work by bouncing from the main targets to other damaged ops near them. They have a base limit of 3 bounces, and the further away an op is in the chain, the less heal they get. So by doubling her attack value and increasing the bounce count, S1 actually becomes a pretty decent healing option that you can use on normal maps. But as you can probably imagine, it can't really compete with her other skills, so it ends up just being a decent healing option, which is something we already have great alternatives for, that perform a lot better in general.
So there's really no reason to use S1?
Well, there actually is a good case you can make for it, but to explain that we need to first look at Mon3tr's talent 1. It gives her a deployable crystal which constantly loses HP that grants every friendly unit around it plus 15% attack. This summon costs 3 DP and can only be deployed inside her range, and I'm sure some of you are asking why the HP loss. Is it a demerit for buffing every op around it? Well, no, that's actually a buff for Mon3tr, because as you can see on screen now, every single one of her skills is offensive recovery, which would be a pretty huge issue for most people, but since the crystal is always losing HP, that means Mon3tr can always have a target to heal, so she will never have to deal with not being able to charge on downtime. There actually is another reason, but it has to do with talent 2, so I'll leave that to the next section. Right now what you need to know is this crystal completely negates any downside of her offensive recovery and gives every ally around it a free 15% attack buff. That's great to have in any team, especially if you're using ops with skills that increase final damage, which is actually the case of many AFK skills. So just bringing Mon3tr and deploying the crystal can already be worth a lot, even over other ops that provide better consistent heals if the stage you're up against asks for more damage instead of healing. The crystal can still die, which would be a huge problem for Mon3tr, but it having 5.4k HP will make it very hard for that to happen. And if you thought it would still have a demerit, since like I said, Chain Medics can only bounce their heals 3 times, so having her heal the crystal would leave one up without it, then you really are underestimating how adamant Hyperglyph is in making so Mon3tr has no flaws. They already made so she has no drawback from offensive recovery, so do you really think it's beyond them to give her an extra bounce whenever she uses the crystal? Because that's exactly what they did, and just so there really are 0 drawbacks, the extra bounce doesn't get reduced healing like normal ones do. He's just that special, so there's really nothing to worry about. But back to S1, what is that scenario I said it could be better than her other skills? Well, I already already showed you how valuable Mon3tr can be just by being deployed, so as you can imagine she can be very good for AFK clears. Which is where one might shine a bit, since this is the only one of her skills that activates automatically, so if you're legit that lazy that you can't be bothered to use a skill once, then this is the one you should take. And I really do mean it when I say AFK, since both her other skills are so much better than S1 that just using them once or twice would already be superior, so overall S1 is decent, but really not worth to use over S2 and S3. If you really want to just not activate any skill though, then be my guest, I guess.
そう君の顔に刻んであげるよ
Oh. Look at that. Look at the right. Her smiley face turned into an angry face too. The button.
Oh my goodness. This is... Oh my goodness, this character development. Her armpit too, Dumbo.
No.
This then brings us to S2.
せかさないであんまりいい心地そうはもうじき終焉耐えろ少しチクッとするかもしれない
It's from here that you'll see how busted Mon3tr's kit actually is, and if you don't already know, then it might look what you saw was simply the U plus Mega Caster's combo, but even though that's not entirely wrong, Mon3tr's still was vital for it to work here. What it does is like S1, extremely simple. She starts to prioritizing healing the crystal, which when receiving Mon3tr's healing will also launch its own bounce heal, and her talent two's effect will be increased by 2.8 times. For now I want to forget the healing part. We will come back to it later though, since that's its own beast. This is the part I wanted to focus on, since it takes an already busted talent and makes it even stronger.
So, what does talent 2 do?
You ask? Well, it gives any ally healed by Mon3tr plus 20 attack speed for 10 seconds after it. And as I showed you, chain medics can heal up to 3 targets per bounce. That means I can have at least 3 ops with a 20% attack speed buff. Or even more depending on the map, since it lasts for 10 seconds. So if you have a way to damage more than 3 ops at once, like you see on screen right now, Mon3tr will be able to give the buff to multiple characters at once. And you can even know which ops have it with this crystal circling around them. If it was just this, it would already be very strong, but now comes the thing I mentioned on this one section. The other benefit of her talent 1's crystal damage in itself. It effectively turns this 10 seconds attack speed buff into a permanent one. Remember, Mon3tr needs to heal for talent 2 to take effect, so if no one is taking damage, she'll have no way of applying her buff. For a lot of ops this doesn't matter, since you only need them to be buffed when their enemy is near, so they will get damaged anyway, but for a lot of characters with big range like snipers, that's huge, especially if they're on range tiles, since it's harder for them to get hit. So with the crystal giving 1 extra bounce to compensate it eating 1 to get healed, and the fact you'll always get 3 bounces regardless if the other targets are damaged or not, that means Mon3tr can permabuff at least 3 ops in your squad, which combined with that 15% extra attacks to ops around the crystal from talent 1, basically turns Mon3tr into a buffer. She's literally given a perma mini Akastri to multiple ops with just her 2 talents. And this is where we get back to S2. It increases the effect of that passive by 2.8 times. So now she gives them 56 attack speed, which actually brings it to the same level as Axis 3. His buff is still stronger since it has that 50% attack increase, while she only gets that 15% from talent 1, but he can only give that to 1 target, while Mon3tr will always buff at least 3 ops. Not to mention how it's impossible to pair up with most ranged ops, unless you also bring something like Shining's S3 because of the whole damage in your own ops thing. But Mon3tr can work with almost anyone as long as they can be healed by her, and the difference she makes is huge. As you can probably imagine, giving 3 ops 56 attack speed is pretty busted, and you can actually actually see that on screen right now. With her help, the U-Lab Chi combo is able to completely nuke this map, while without her they can't even kill all the mechas or even bring the boss to phase 2. And this isn't even all S2 does. Remember, we still have one more thing to talk about. That one I told you to forget about earlier, S2's healing.
最適滅ぼしそしていますいつまで過去に浸ってるの
Yeah, not only S2 doesn't have Axe the merit of killing your own ops, it actually heals a lot on top of that. Enough to fully sustain 3 ops against Cholula's Firestorm, as you can see, or even keeps Mon3tr alive for the entirety of its 30-second length. S2 is a beast of a burst healing skill, mainly for 2 reasons. The first is that Mon3tr's attack speed buff also gets applied to herself, and it doesn't even require one of the bounces to reach her, so just by her activating S2 and healing anyone, she'll get 56 attack speed. And the second reason is this portion of S2. It makes so whenever the crystal is healed by her, which should always happen since Mon3tr prioritizes it during S2, it will launch a bounce healing of its own, which basically doubles Mon3tr's heals. So the TLDR is that S2 increases her attack speed by 56% and doubles each of her healings after it, which makes it stronger than even something like AS3 on a single target. And let's also not forget that this isn't a pure healing skill. While she performs all that healing, Mon3tr is buffing your team, which massively increases S2's value. All that on a 15 SP cost, so with him with a skill that provides a ton of utility, insane healing, all that on top of an op who already provides value just for existing, you can't go wrong here.
せかさないであんまりいい帰るそうはもう 最適な布陣を計算し終わった準備完了
Both of them? I don't. How are you gonna block both of them?
There's a mine. There's a DPS.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Oh, that thing is healing forever.
Lastly then, we have S3.
通信にすまない力を入れすぎた
This is Mon3tr's DPS skill, and I say that with quotes because it's not your typical boss kill in S3, there's actually a lot going on in it. When you activate it, Mon3tr will move to wherever tile the crystal is on, then she'll get plus 330% attack, plus 2 block, plus 5000 max HP, start to deal true damage on a 3x3 area, attack enemies equal to block count, lose 8 HP per second, and every time she attacks, he'll sell for 50% attack. Very simple, right? Okay, let's go from the beginning. As you saw at the start of this section, whenever you use S3, Mon3tr will become like her OG self and start dealing true damage. But when you compare the two, the new one is just a complete upgrade over her old self. And the first reason is what you see on screen right now. She has multi-targeting, so there's already a big upgrade here. And if you thought they would compensate that by making her deal less total damage since it's now multi-target, then think again, cause new Mon3tr also deals more damage. Maybe you're looking at that thinking this is just an upgraded Calcita S3, which is not wrong, but this next thing is what really sets S3 apart from the usual medic. Mon3tr heals every time she attacks. Now, by itself that isn't anything special, we literally have an archetype just for that. But what really makes this S3 special is everything she does on top of the heal. First, you literally get a multi-target true damage source to deal with enemies easier. Second, that healing chain is a bounce heal, so you're also gonna heal up to 3 allies in her chain, and they'll all get her 20 attack speed buff from talent 2. You can even deploy the crystal itself again after its cooldown ends to get the attack buff. Third, Mon3tr heals a lot during S3. It actually competes with S2 in terms of burst healing. And this is where what I said at the start of this section comes. S3 is not a DPS skill. Sure, you can use it to kill elites and damage a lot of bosses, but what I mean is that this isn't your standard big DPS inside a huge area skill. If you try to use her like that, the results will be pretty underwhelming in comparison. What this skill is good for is killing elites and basically act as a sub DPS that also buffs and heal your allies, which is especially good in places like chapter 15, where they spam a ton of tanky elites on the more difficult maps. The kind that doesn't just die to one Wizardell shot like you're used to. And she's great at dealing with them because her damage can go through their 3k defense and 80 res. She's also able to auto-heal multiple of them at once, while also protecting other ops around where she's fighting them. And one of the best ops to pair with Mon3tr is Yun, his S2, since all the enemies he pulls will be concentrated in one tile for her, which, because of her burst heal, allows him to pull some very problematic mobs without dying. That's why this pair was already used in some future in-game events like CC and Vector. S3 does have some weaknesses, like needing something to hit or Mon3tr won't be able to heal anything, as well as being restricted by where you can deploy her crystal. But everything her kit has does compensate for it. This S3 is basically if you took out its S2 and S3, fused in one and gave it a ton of extra stuff. It has multi-targeting, deals more total damage, heals and buffs not just herself but every other op around her. Mon3tr even has a failsafe in it. If she dies while S3 is active, it'll just return her to her original position with 1 HP. All that on top of an extremely cheap 15 SP cost. Overall, Mon3tr is a very strong operator. She can give very general buffs passively that get even stronger on S2 while also providing a very good burst of heal that's also just as strong on S3 with the added true damage to help. If you just want a medic that heals and is comfortable, then AS1 is still gonna be better. But Mon3tr's kit is so over the top on the amount of good stuff it can do, and Hyperglyph went so out of their way to patch most downsides she could have, that I'd have a hard time if I didn't recommend you pull Mon3tr. She's great to have in any account, pairs well with a bunch of other ops, has great character design, and will age really well after release. You can go watch this video I made ranking all future ops to check that. Just make sure to comment, leave a like, and subscribe before you go. Also consider becoming a channel member if you want to support me, use emotes, get a badge, early access to videos, or just appear by a blunt aside.
最適な武器転がしそして
That's it then. Bye.
少し待て組織サンプルを採取する必要がある